Okay, let's look at this quick poll. It's talking about the end behavior for the given graph. We know that as x approaches infinity is on the right-hand side of the graph. This is going to be x approaches infinity. And to get what y is approaching, we are going to look at the arrow on that side. The arrow is pointing up, therefore it is approaching infinity. So as x approaches infinity, f of x or y approaches infinity. On the left-hand side of the graph, we know this is x is approaching negative infinity. And we look at the arrow, since it is pointing down, that is representing negative infinity. So as x approaches negative infinity, f of x approaches negative infinity. Therefore, the answer to this particular question would be, and I'm trying to find where it is, answer C. All right, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at polynomial division. There are two ways that you can divide polynomials. You can divide it by long division or what is called synthetic division. Let's just review over long division. We're going to take the dividend, and it's going to go under the division symbol. We're going to divide by 3. 3 will go into 5 one time. We multiply 1 times 3 is 3 and subtract. We get 2 and we bring down the 6. 3 goes into 26 8 times. Multiply, subtract, bring down the 0. 3 goes into 26 times. Subtract, and we have a remainder of 2. Now we are going to write a remainder as a fraction, and that fraction is going to be the remainder, which is in this case 2, divided by the divisor, which is 3. All right, to do the long division, we're basically doing the same process. We have our divisor, x plus 2, divided into x squared plus 7x plus 12. And we are going to do exactly what the steps say. We're going to divide the first term of the dividend by the first term of the divisor. So that means we're doing x squared divided by x, which is x. We put the x in the quotient, and then we multiply times the entire divisor. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is positive 2x. We are going to subtract, which means that we are doing the opposite. And when I simplify, the x squareds cancel out. 7x minus 2x is 5x, and I bring down the plus 12. I go through the same process again, and I'm going to take, this time, 5x and divide it by x, and that is equal to 5. So in my dividend, in my quotient, I'm going to have plus 5. Multiply 5x plus 10. I'm going to subtract, and when I subtract, that means they're becoming the opposite. The x's cancel, and I have a remainder of 2, which would be 2 over x plus 2. So my answer is x plus 5 plus 2 divided by x plus 2. All right, synthetic division cannot be used all times. It can only be used when it is a linear binomial with a coefficient of 1. So that means when I look at this divisor, x minus 4, it is a linear binomial, and it does have a coefficient of 1. That means it's to the first degree, and it has a coefficient of 1 in front of x. To do synthetic division, it says that we are going to find our divisor, and to find our divisor, we can do two things. We can either say x minus 4 is equal to 0, solve that, and we get x is equal to 4, and that tells us what our divisor is. Or we can just remember that when we're doing synthetic division, our divisor has to be the number after the minus sign. So in this case, our divisor would be 4. If you had a divisor that was x plus 3, you would have to rewrite that as x minus negative 3, which then would mean that your divisor is negative 3. To do synthetic division, we know our divisor is 4, so on the left-hand side in the box, I'm going to put the number 4. I'm going to list my coefficients of the dividend. I have 2x squared, negative 3x, and negative 8. The process of synthetic division is that you are going to bring down the first coefficient. At that point, you are then going to multiply 2 times 4, which is 8, and we are then going to add the two numbers together. Negative 3 plus 8 is going to be 5. We repeat the process. We multiply 5 times the divisor 4. 5 times 4 is 20, and we add to get 12. I'm going to place the number 12 in a box on the right-hand side because that is always going to be the remainder. To get your answer, what we're going to do is we are dividing an x squared by an x. That means when I write my answer, the 2 is going to be the coefficient of x to the first power. The 5 is going to be the constant, and we add the remainder, which is going to be 12 over x minus 4. All right, the remainder theorem is a theorem that we can use to find what the value of a function is. We can do it two ways. We can either plug it in. So if I'm given this function p of x, and I have to find p of 5, that means everywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace x with 5. And to get the answer, I'm simply going to type in the right-hand side into Desmos. I can type it in as one whole problem, and I find the answer is 66. So the value of this function when x is 5 is 66. Using the remainder theorem, it says that if I perform synthetic division on this polynomial, my divisor is 5, and I list my coefficients, 2, negative 7, negative 2, and 1. I'm going to bring down the first one, multiply and add, multiply and add, multiply and add. The remainder is always going to be the value of that function at that particular variable, that value. So when p is 5, that is like we are dividing this polynomial by x minus 5, and the answer that represents the remainder would be the correct answer. All right, we are dividing this. Look at our divisor. Our divisor is x plus 2. That means it is a linear binomial, and I can do synthetic division. I could also do long division. It doesn't make any difference, but we're just going to do synthetic. The only thing we have to remember is that we want our divisor to always be the number that is subtracted from x. So because this is not subtraction, because it is addition, we are going to either rewrite it as x minus negative 2, which then tells me that my divisor is negative 2, or we take the factor, set it equal to 0, and solve to get x equal negative 2. So my divisor is going to be negative 2. My coefficients, I have 2x squared, 5x, negative 3. Okay, bring down the first, multiply and add, multiply and add, and I see that I do have a remainder. So when I'm writing my answer, the original was an x squared. We're dividing by x, so we know that our answer is going to be in x to the first power. That is going to be the coefficient of x plus 1 plus negative 5 divided by x plus 2. So answer A. Right, on this one, my divisor is 2x minus 1. This is not a linear binomial with a coefficient of 1. It has a coefficient of 2. That means that I have to do long division. All right, so in terms of doing synthetic division, this number in front of x has to be a 1. Because that is a 2, we have to do long division. All right, so let's take our problem. We have 2x minus 1. We're dividing into 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 11x plus 4. And we're going to divide 2x cubed divided by 2x. We'll go x squared. Multiply, we get 2x cubed minus 1x squared. Take the opposite. This becomes negative. This becomes positive. I get 6x squared, and I bring down the next term. All right, I now do 6x squared divided by x squared is 6. Multiply through, and I'm going to get, okay, let's go back here. Is going to be 3x. I'm going to multiply through and get 6x squared minus 3x. I subtract, becomes a minus and a plus, and I get negative 8x plus 4. I now divide negative 8x by 2x, and it goes negative 4 times. I multiply negative 8x plus 4. I subtract. This becomes positive. This becomes negative. And my remainder is 0. Therefore, my answer would have been answer B. On the plus 7. All right, this is an example of a true-false question. And because your divisor is x squared plus 1, that tells me that we have to do long division. All right, so if I am doing long division, notice what I do. I put in a 0x. Anytime that you have a missing exponent, then it is important that you put in a term to represent that exponent. And the reason for that is because it allows us to actually line up our like terms. So we're going to do 3x cubed divided by x squared, and that gives me 3x. I multiply 3x times x squared is 3x cubed. 3x times 0x is 0x squared. 3x times 1 is 3x. I subtract, which means that I'm going to take the opposite. This is a minus, this becomes a minus, and this becomes a minus. I have 1 minus 0, which is going to give me x squared. And I have negative 5x minus 3x, which is negative 8x. And I bring... All right, at this point, we're now going to do x squared divided by x squared. Anything divided by itself is 1. So this becomes plus 1. Multiply through, I get x squared plus 0x plus 1. I am going to subtract, which means that I'm taking the opposite, negative, 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 and combine to get negative 8x plus 6. This is my remainder. Therefore, I write my remainder over my original divisor, which was x squared plus 1. All right, divisor is x plus 3. That is possible to use for synthetic division. The only thing that we need to make sure is we write it as x minus negative 3. So our divisor is negative 3. My coefficients, I have 1x cubed, negative 3x squared, negative 10x to the first, and 24x to the 0. I bring down the 1, and I multiply, and then I add to get negative 6. I multiply, and then I add to get 8. I multiply, and then I add to get 0, which tells me that my remainder is 0. This is going to be your remainder. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to write our answer. Our original problem was x cubed. Therefore, this is going to be the coefficient of x squared is 1. The coefficient of x to the first is negative 6. The coefficient of x to the 0, or the constant, is 8. So answer